Is it wrong to lie? Kant's answer will surprise you. You're standing in a hospital hallway. A loved one has just been diagnosed with a terminal illness, but they don't know it yet. The doctor quietly asks you, should I tell them the truth, or should we protect them with a gentler version? Your heart aches. You hesitate, and in that brief moment of silence, one question ignites in your mind. Is it wrong to lie, even if the truth causes pain? Every day, we face quiet moral tests. Do you tell your friend their partner is cheating? Do you say, I'm fine, when your soul is breaking inside? Do you lie to keep the peace, or speak the truth and risk everything? Kant didn't believe in gray areas. He stood like a stone in a river of excuses and asked one radical question: can you will that your action become a universal law? This is the essence of the categorical imperative, a command born not from emotion, but from reason, duty, and moral freedom. To lie, for Kant, is never just a decision. It is a fracture in the logic of trust, a rupture in human dignity. He wrote, by a lie a man throws away and, as it were, annihilates his dignity as a man. But is that always true? What if lying saves a life? What if silence brings peace? Can duty ever make room for compassion? In the next few minutes, we'll walk through Kant's strict moral terrain, but also into the hidden tension beneath, the dignity of autonomy, the weight of truth, and the price of freedom in a world full of masks. Because today, lying is often called emotional intelligence, but Kant's answer might sound like a whisper from another world. So, is it wrong to lie? Let's begin. Imagine this. Before making any moral decision, you ask yourself just one question. What if everyone did what I'm about to do? That's not a thought experiment for Kant. It's the core of his moral philosophy. Kant believed that morality must never depend on emotion, outcome, or personal desire. These things waver, they deceive, they betray. But reason remains, and reason gives us a compass, unshakable. That compass is the categorical imperative. He defined it with clarity. Act only according to that maxim whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. If you can't will your action as a rule for everyone, then it cannot be moral. Lying fails this test. If lying became law, truth itself would die, and with it, trust, contracts, even the simplest conversation. So even a harmless lie is not harmless at all. It's a breach in the order that makes freedom possible. Now think of how we make decisions today. Follow your heart. Do what feels right. If it doesn't hurt anyone, it's okay. But Kant warns us, feeling is fleeting, reason endures. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about protecting freedom, not just yours, but others. Because every lie manipulates. It steals the other person's power to choose. So, what if the truth causes suffering? What if the person can't handle it? For Kant, even then, truth's not optional. The moral law does not shift with emotion. We live in an age that calls lies tactical. But Kant says, do the right thing, not for what it brings, but because it is right. And that leads us to the next dilemma. When doing the right thing causes suffering, should you still do it? There's a quiet kind of courage, the kind that doesn't shout, but trembles as it acts. It's the courage of doing what's right, even when everything in you wants to do otherwise. For Kant, moral strength is proven not when duty is easy, but when it costs you something. Imagine telling the truth that breaks someone's heart, or refusing to lie, and losing a job, or standing for principle, and ending up alone. In modern language, this seems cruel, but for Kant, it is the only path to moral freedom. Because the moment you let emotion dictate your choices, you are no longer free. You are ruled by impulse, not reason, and that is the opposite of dignity. Kant believed that duty is not measured by comfort, but by whether it arises from the moral law within. He wrote, "Duty is the necessity of an action from respect for the law." It's not about being good for reward or avoiding guilt, but about obeying a voice inside that is above all rewards. In today's world, we often ask, will this make me happy? But Kant challenges us to ask, is this worthy of being a law for all? Because happiness can come and go, but moral worth stands beyond time. Still, this raises a painful truth. What if doing the right thing breaks your heart? What if it alienates you? What if you're punished for your integrity? Kant doesn't offer comfort. He offers clarity. You are not responsible for outcomes, only for the moral will behind your action. The world might reject you, but if your action can be universalized, if it respects the dignity of all, then you have done your duty, and in Kant's view, that is the highest expression of freedom. So now we ask, can freedom exist when it's born in obedience? That's the next paradox we must confront. We tend to think of freedom as doing whatever we want, saying yes to impulse, chasing desires, ignoring boundaries. But for Kant, this isn't freedom at all, it's enslavement in disguise. True freedom, he says, comes not from acting on desire, but from acting against it, when reason commands something higher. It's in the moment you want to lie, but tell the truth. In the moment you want to give in, but stand firm. In the moment you want to run, but stay. That moment is where freedom is born. Because in Kant's world, you are only free when you obey the moral law you give to yourself, not one imposed by force, fear, or pleasure, but one written in the core of your rational being. He calls this the autonomy of the will, the capacity to legislate for yourself, as if you were both ruler and subject in your own moral kingdom. To act out of emotion, even a noble one like compassion, is not autonomy, because feelings come from outside. They sway and manipulate. But the moral law, it rises from within. That's why Kant sees freedom and duty not as enemies, but as partners. Freedom is not the absence of constraint. It is obedience to a law that reason gives to itself. Think of the modern culture of choice. Everything is about what we want, what feels good, what suits us in the moment. But Kant says, if you are only following what you want, you are not free. You are a slave to your own appetite. This is difficult because it demands a radical form of self-governance. It asks you to rise above your circumstances and to become a lawmaker of your own character. So then comes the question, if freedom is found in rational self-command, then what becomes of desire, emotion, and love? Can we still be human and live by Kant's ethics? That's where we're headed next. Because understanding duty without dehumanization is one of the hardest and most beautiful parts of Kantian thought. Can we live a moral life without denying that we feel, without becoming cold, rigid, or disconnected? Kant never said we must kill emotion, but he warned against making it our master. Feelings, he wrote, may inspire us, but they must never govern us. Imagine a surgeon who stops mid-operation because he feels overwhelmed, or a judge who lets anger decide a verdict, or a parent who gives in to a child's every desire out of guilt. In each case, emotion is real, but it's not enough. What's needed is principle and reason. Kant saw human dignity not in how we feel, but in our ability to rise above feeling, to act according to something higher. He wrote, "It is not enough to do what is right. One must do it for the sake of duty." This doesn't mean we become unfeeling machines. Kant understood pain, compassion, toil. But he believed that only reason can make these emotions meaningful, because when we act out of compassion and duty, then our love is not impulsive. It is ethical. This is what makes a moral person human. Not that they feel, but that they choose rightly in spite of feeling. And this is why Kant believed so deeply in dignity. Because to act morally is to honor the divine in reason, to align yourself not just with what is comfortable, but with what is universal. In a world where emotion often becomes identity, where feeling good is treated like a moral compass, Kant's vision is sharp and demanding, but it offers something rare. A freedom that respects not just how we feel, but who we are capable of becoming. And here, we encounter one of his most famous affirmations, a sentence that echoes through the centuries. Act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of another, always at the same time as an end, never merely as a means. That leads us deeper still into the idea of dignity. What does it mean to treat another person, or yourself, as an end, and what happens when we don't? Let's turn to that next. There are things we use, tools, systems, even words, but people. People are never meant to be used. That is the core of Kant's ethical world. He believed that every human being has a value beyond price, a dignity that cannot be reduced, replaced, or exchanged. And to respect this dignity, and to treat the person not as a means to our goals, but as a purpose in themselves. This is why lies are so dangerous, because when we lie and we control someone's perception, we make them act on falsehood for our sake. We turn them into tools. But Kant demands more. He says, so act that you use humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, always at the same time as an end, never merely as a means. This principle holds everywhere. In relationships, politics, business, even love. When we manipulate others, even gently, even silently, we rob them of their freedom. Consider modern advertising. How often are we treated as minds? How often are we treated as desires or data points? What Kant feared is already here. A world where people are means. Everywhere. To live ethically today is an act of rebellion. It means refusing to play games with people's hearts. It means refusing to flatter for gain. It means telling the truth, not because it's easy, but because it honors the other's autonomy. Kant believed this wasn't just about others. It begins within. You must also never treat yourself as a mere tool, not as a machine for success, not as a product to please, but as a being of reason, with infinite worth. This is why lying, even to protect yourself, still violates something sacred, because it sends a message. I am not worthy of facing truth. I must manipulate to survive. And that is not dignity. That is despair dressed in strategy. So we ask now, what happens to a society that forgets this principle? What happens when everything becomes a means, and no one is treated as an end? In the next section, we will explore how Kant's philosophy stands as a mirror to our modern culture of desire and image, and why his message may be more urgent now than ever. Scroll through your feed, watch the headlines, Listen to the language of today's world, and you'll hear the same rhythm. Be desirable. Win at all costs. Bend the truth if it gets you ahead. In this world, appearances often matter more than truth. Feelings outrank principles, and success, even shallow, is worth more than moral clarity. But Kant stands like a mountain in the storm, unmoved. He reminds us that a society built on convenience, not duty, will one day collapse, because trust, dignity, and reason cannot survive in a world of lies. He warns, morality is not properly the doctrine of how we may make ourselves happy, but how we may make ourselves worthy of happiness. Worthiness, a word we rarely hear anymore, because it implies effort, conscience, limits. But Kant believed this was the true measure of life, not pleasure, not power, but whether we live in a way that could be made law for all. The culture of social media, of personal branding, often teaches us the opposite. Curate the image, edit the flaw, say what they want to hear, not what is right. And yet, beneath all the performance, many feel hollow, disconnected, anxious, because truth has been traded for applause and conscience for popularity. Kant gives us a brutal but necessary mirror. He doesn't promise ease, he doesn't promise happiness, but he offers something deeper: integrity, moral strength, and a life aligned with reason. To choose that life in today's world is radical. It means standing against manipulation, even when it costs. It means speaking truth, even when it shakes the ground beneath you. It means treating others, and yourself, as beings of infinite worth. So we ask one final question. Can we reclaim moral clarity in a world addicted to masks? And if so, what kind of world could we create if we lived as if our every action were a universal law? Let's bring it all together. Let's return to where we began, a hospital hallway. A difficult choice, a moment where truth felt cruel, and a lie felt like mercy. But now, through Kant's eyes, we see more. We see that every decision shapes not just a moment, but the moral fabric of the world. To lie, even with good intention, is to say, this action, if done by all, would still be right, and if you hesitate to make it universal, then you already know. Kant's philosophy demands more from us than comfort. It demands courage, the courage to think for ourselves, to act not out of impulse, but from principle, to live as if our character were a model for all. This is not easy, but it is rare and beautiful, because in a world obsessed with what works, Kant calls us back to what's right. You may lose something by telling the truth. You may suffer for doing what's right. But Kant reminds us, your dignity is never found in what you gain. It is found in what you stand for. So, next time you're faced with a moral test, pause. Ask yourself, can this become a law for all? And let that question guide you, not to comfort, but to clarity, not to ease, but to truth. As Kant wrote, live your life as though your every act were to become a universal law. And so we close, not with answers, but with a deeper commitment to be governed by reason, to choose duty over convenience, to treat others and ourselves, not as objects, but as sacred ends. If this message speaks to something quiet but true inside you, consider joining us. Subscribe to the channel, not just for more philosophy, but for the pursuit of a life that's worthy of being universal. Thank you for reflecting with me. Until next time, walk with conscience and live as if you were free.